If you write estimates for disaster restoration work, you already know small changes in Xactimate can have a big impact. And one of the latest shifts getting a lot of attention is the updated labor efficiency settings. At first glance, it might seem like another technical adjustment, but in reality, could it be changing how jobs are priced? Could it be changing how estimates are justified? And in many cases, could it be changing how contractors and carriers see the same project very differently? Well, today we're going to break down what this change really means for restoration professionals, how it affects your bottom line, where misunderstandings are happening, and how to make sure your estimates reflect the reality of the job. And with me, I have two experts who are going to talk about this, Nate Sisney and Ben Justison with Restoration Made Simple. Gentlemen, I appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Jeff. I know I've been on before. It's always a pleasure. You do an awesome job. So glad to be back. And Ben, this might be his first time. I don't know.
It is. And so let's go to Ben first with an introduction because let's get to know him. Ben, tell us about yourself and what you do.
So I've been in the industry a long time. I owned and operated a restoration company in Washington. And then I also had an estimating business, and I was also an Xactimate certified trainer and had a business doing that. So I sold those businesses, and then I worked for the private equity for a little bit after that, and then went to DocuSketch. And now recently I've joined on with the RMS team as a senior consultant.
Well, Nate, this might be a nice catch for you.
We were very happy. The stars lined up. It was, I think, just the perfect match. Ben and I have known each other because of our restoration companies, and we were in other consulting groups. So when all this lined up, which it's a long story, crazy story, but yeah, we're very happy. Ben knows how we work. We're very similar in the ways that we think, have a lot of similarities on the restoration side and how to help clients and hopefully how to make this industry a little bit better, right? There's plenty of
Yeah,
bad, there's plenty of good, and hopefully we'll bring more good than bad. So
absolutely. And Ben, I didn't mean to call you a catch. You're a professional. Say, supposed to say that.
Oh, I don't mind being called a catch.
his
There you
wife
go.
thinks he's a great catch.
I hope so. I hope so. Well, Nate, talk about yourself a little bit. Tell us about what you do. Maybe.
Kind of like Ben, been in the industry for 20 plus years, started a restoration company from the ground floor up. We were very fortunate that we were successful. We built it into a big machine. Like Ben, we got bought out by private equity. When that happened, Greg Sargent, who's one of the owners of RMS, he was already doing consulting. Him and I reunited. We've known each other for a long time, but we had not talked. And when I left, him and I got together. He said, Nate, I'm swamped. I need more help. And I really need a partner that can work with larger companies. Greg has always worked with the smaller to medium-sized companies. I come from the bigger size company background. So we took that plunge. We had to change the name of the company because it was under his name. So we came up with a different name. Now we went from two people up to five. So Ben is our most recent that we've added on. And I think if you're going to talk about RMS, I really still don't like to say that we're a consulting company. I actually think that we are industry experts who are very hands-on, who help other business owners. So we're not consulting or coaching outside of this industry. We are people who have all been successful. We know the industry really well, and people are drawing upon our knowledge so that hopefully they don't have to make the same mistakes we did, and hopefully that they can be more successful and build up their companies. And that's really what we pride ourselves on, is just being very hands-on in the weeds.
Let's talk. Let's talk about our topic today. Ben, let's start with you on this. I understand there's something controversial and maybe a hot topic with Xactimate these days. Can you fill us in on what that is?
Yeah, it's a hot topic, and it's going to get even hotter because many people don't even know about it yet. So there was a paper put out by Verisk here, I think a month or so ago. Uh, I think they're going to be sending out more things regarding it, but it's going to be in regards to their labor efficiencies. And so they're coming out with some neat products and making changes to their system, which is great. This was something that kind of caught, I think, contractors by surprise. And so some of the things that we're looking at, um, we already have this new construction setting, which they are going to relabel, and then they are wanting to introduce a large loss efficiency. And so we didn't really know what that meant, but in general, it meant that, something was going to go down from the regular restoration pricing or the restoration labor efficiencies. So at first, we didn't know what it was. So we've gotten more details now. Uh, and, there's going to be differing opinions on whether it's good, whether it's bad. And we can go into the details of what it actually does in the estimate. But one thing I'm going to say is I just don't like any setting that is a global change across the entire estimate. If we want to change one specific thing or one specific trade, that's fine. But when we get these settings from software companies that are global changes, that I think every contractor should be in disagreement with.
Appreciate that. Nate, what do you see here? How would you encapsulate this, and what are you going to tell your clients when they ask the question about it?
Well, I think first and foremost, Ben's typically at the forefront of what's going on. So with our clients, a lot of them, unfortunately, because they're business operator owners, a lot of them don't know about this stuff, right? And so I think, Ben, throughout his past life, he sits on the committee for the RIA, for the pricing committee and all that stuff. So he's actually making a lot of us aware of this. So we're grateful to have Ben on that committee because I think a lot of us as owners, we just continue to use Xactimate simply because it's the tool that we have, and we're not aware of a lot of these changes. So to be honest, it could be a really big change, but a lot of people actually may not know about it if I'm just being completely fair. Okay. Second thing is when Ben talks about global changes, I agree with him. There's some things where I think global changes are necessary and they definitely have a point. But, Ben will talk a lot more, I'm sure, as you ask questions, is each area in each region is different. We can't assume that every state and every city and every town operate the same. I live in Utah. We have Park City, which is a resort town. Obviously, the things that we do in Park City are going to be much different in price than they're going to be down in the valley. I'm not going to be able to get contractors up there. It's going to be a longer drive. And so there's these unique changes that Xactimate sometimes doesn't take into account for because of the fact that you just may not be able to get the labor at the cost that you need it to, right? And so when Ben talks about global changes, I think something's necessary. I'm okay with a global change that I think would benefit everybody, but there's all these other minutia where we really do have to look at each individual area because you can't just make a global statement and say, oh, because you're in California, everybody else has to deal with this.
Mhm.
So I think those are the things that are critical as contractors that we have to be aware of, and we have to be advocating for specific regions on specific changes.
So Ben, back to you. These are about new labor efficiencies, changes. Sum it up. What does that really mean? For those not up to speed on this, can you spell it out for us what it's going to really mean to the work, to the estimating?
Yeah. So we're going to get in the weeds a little bit. And I know that I may geek out over Xactimate than most, but here's what's really happening. On a general view of it, it changes the price. Okay. And it's going to lower what the price is from the normal restoration setting. But what's really happening on the inside is it's reducing the waste time on the labor. So you're going to find that in the supporting events. Now, if we were to take, let's say, framing as an example, and not to make this boring, but I'm going to read something here. In the time assumptions or the supporting events for the framing labor, this is where you get your waste. Okay. So just like Material has 5–10% waste because you're cutting things and some of it you just throw away because you can't use it. Well, there's time waste because we're going to have, I'll read it for you. The labor assumption is based on an 8-hour day. So that's a typical workday with 5-minute planning, 60-minute total drive time. So that's half an hour there, half an hour back. Material equipment pickup is also included in that 60 minutes. So not a lot of time if you have to go to the store and pick things up and still go to the job. But we get 60 minutes total for the day for that job. 20-minute breaks. That's fine. That's what it should be. 42.5 minutes setup cleanup of tools and equipment, debris removal, floor sweeping, or vacuuming in the immediate workspace, independent of any final cleaning at the end of the job if warranted, which is also very good verbiage for any of those charging for final cleaning because it's separate from these supporting events. And 37.5 minutes overall loss of productivity from working in a restoration environment. So what they do is they add up the 5-minute planning, the 60-minute drive time, 20-minute breaks, 42.5 minute, and the 37.5 minute. And I don't have a calculator in front of me, but you add all that up and divide it by 480 because that's how many minutes are in an 8-hour day. And that comes out to a percentage, and it's probably around 37%, something like that. Just quick math in my head, maybe 40%. So what happens is this changes and it goes from an 8-hour day with 5-minute planning, 20-minute breaks, no drive time. They took away the drive time. 35-minute setup and cleanup of the immediate work area instead of 42.5. And then there is no minutes for overall loss of productivity from working in a restoration environment, which was another 37 and some change minutes. So they're taking away 60 minutes. They're reducing the setup, cleanup, tools of equipment, debris removal, floor sweeping by, let's just say, 8 minutes. And then 37.5 minutes of the overall loss of productivity. And if first thing right off the top of my head is, and they do something similar with the new construction setting. The new construction setting also takes away the drive time and other things, but we see as an average, we did some math and we're seeing about between 4 and 5% average that comes off the estimate with this new large loss setting. With the new construction setting, we were seeing between 15 and 20%. It was a big reduction. And all of it lies in this supporting events, this wasted time, because they're not giving us drive time, because we're not getting the overall loss of productivity working in a restoration environment. And if you ask any restoration contractor, even if the homeowner's not living there, I guarantee you have that homeowner, even more so than a new construction job, looking over your shoulder, giving you a hard time about whatever. It takes longer to try and get them to pick things out. Typically with new construction, there's like this, and this. Like the new construction and spec homes, they're like, you have 3 options, pick from one of those, or you got to pay more. And so you actually pay more money for any changes, where when we do stuff, it's like it's unlimited what they get to use, right? Like there's the budget, but they could go over, they could go under, and now we've got this accounting nightmare trying to figure out stuff that most new construction companies do not. There's a lot more hand holding. We typically have problems just getting permitted for doing these things because we're trying to put something together that there's some old, there's some new. And then the really big concern is, what is a large loss? Because the definition that we got from Verisk for both new construction and large loss is very vague. They're leaving it up to us as the user to determine what that is. Well, The problem in the past has been just like we used to have base service charges in Xactimate. So the insurance companies determined how we were supposed to use those. And then they went to labor minimums. Guess who determined how we use those too? That like if I try to put this as a minimum or this trade as a minimum, they're like, no, you only get one, or you don't get this because that guy can do the same thing. Yeah, maybe, but I still have to drive out there for just that trade, right? Like I still have to go to the store and get the insulation, even though I may have the drywaller do it. Like it still takes more time and there should be some kind of minimum. And so all these settings that get put out there, they get abused. And I'm not saying it's just the con or the carrier. There are things that get abused on the contractor side as well,
Okay.
right?
That's fair.
Maybe just for those who are listening to that don't understand. So like on the labor minimum charge, sometimes Xactimate would put that in, and for a plumber it'd be, let's say, $150. Well, Ben and I can't get a plumber out for less than 250, right? So Xactimate's saying it's 150, the labor minimum. That's what we're going to give you for the plumber, because all he needs to do is put one washer in the sink and it's going to work again. And so they're just going, oh, we'll pay $150. Well, we understand it's just a washer. It's only going to take them 10 minutes, but no plumber shows up in this day and age for $150,
Yeah,
right?
on paper, it makes
So
sense.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So they're trying to break down the work that he's doing and quantifying, saying this is what it should cost to do the work. And we're going, yeah, but you don't understand. They're going to charge us their travel, their service call fee. They're going to say the time that's there. So they're not pricing it the way Xactimate does. And so that kills us as a contractor because we're you're eating it, or we have to justify why we have to charge that amount.
So thank you. And Ben explained nicely what all this means. I imagine there's a lot more to it than, and we can't cover every detail. You talked about settings and Xactimate. You have to be careful how you do your settings. I don't know what that means, and I'm not going to pretend to. But as a contractor, they understand what that is about. Is this already been happening? Is this out there and being used, or is this coming?
This is brand new. It's supposed to be out this month. I don't know if people have seen it or not.
Okay.
In fact, Nate and I in our calls with people, I brought it up a few times. Nobody that we have spoke to so far is aware of what's going on. And I'm not saying that they should or shouldn't be because maybe their email settings don't get them. And a lot of times these emails might go to the owner, but they're like, here's some more spam mail, right? And the estimators aren't getting it. Maybe they pay attention, but they're not included on the emails that come out. And most people don't know you can go into the Verisk website. You can sign up for the emails that let you know about these new things that come out. So if you don't, well, get on the website and make sure your settings are correct for whatever you're wanting to receive in your email, and you'll get these notifications.
So this is like an industry alert warning people, informing them that they're going to see something soon in their process and they're going to be scratching their head as to what this is. But knowing ahead of time, they'll understand. And this is not about line items. This is about the bigger picture of labor and efficiencies. Okay. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. And the other thing too, Jeff, is the average contractor may not actually understand the verbiage. So Verisk may say, hey, we let everybody know. And it is up to us as contractors to probably interpret and understand things. But a lot of us are so busy and we're doing things that we see these updates. But unless you're a person like Ben, you're probably not calculating the fact that, hey, you're going to be losing 3 to 5% on every job moving forward. And so generally, what's happening in our industry, most of us as contractors don't realize when something maybe happens that hurts us adversely because we're just running businesses, we're going. It takes people like Ben, and I think this happens in any industry across the world. It takes somebody to catch on and go, hey guys, are you realizing that they're actually squeezing you? from here and they're squeezing you from here, right? Like it takes those kind of one-off people to find those. And then when we all find out as contractors, at that point we're all up in arms and we're all yelling and screaming saying this is wrong. But it does take people to notify us because we a lot of times are unaware or uneducated when these changes occur.
They're just done. They're just added in, correct? No permission asked,
The
just
setting's there, but the problem is even if we don't know about it, the carriers start learning about it. So, Jeff, let me ask you, what do you think a large loss is? Is it a dollar amount?
oh, that's a good question. So I'm a journalist. I am not a restoration contractor, but I would say it's a large commercial building. But if my home gets flooded and everything has to be repaired, that's a large loss to me.
Yeah.
Perspective,
Nate?
right? I guess it's perspective.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you're an insurance company trying to save some money and 5% comes off the estimate, would you lower that threshold?
Hmm.
Nate, what do you think a large loss is?
I don't know. That's a really good question because Jeff doesn't know this. I'm going to liken it to something else. When insurance carriers tell us they're not going to pay O&P because of complexity, if it doesn't have a certain amount of complexity, they won't pay it. Or if you don't have more than three trades involved. And I've always said that's just total crap because we're still a contractor. We still have to warranty all of our work. We're the ones who get sued if something goes. So I've always said it doesn't matter about complexity or how many trades we have in it. I'm the contractor that's going to get sued if things don't go right. So I should always be able to charge overhead and profit for everything that I do because I'm the guy that's putting my name on it. So when I hear large loss, that's another one of those where I go, there's going to be a million opinions from somebody. They're probably going to try to say, how technical is it? How many trades do you need? You know what I mean? And I'm going, I don't think that's the right way to quantify personally. I just go, that's not right. Because at the end of the day, some of my easiest jobs were the jobs that took all the time in the world because I was dealing with a pain in the butt owner and it was a $5,000, $10,000 loss. But that job was as painful as a $100,000 loss because of the owner. So what's large loss? You know what I mean?
Well,
I don't know.
you're exactly right. And I'll give you an example of why this global setting is an issue. So if I have a job, I had a big church, $2.5 million job. And most of the trades were very complex but there was probably some efficiencies that could be had. It didn't take as much because they had a lot of sheetrock to do or a lot of painting to do, right? And so when you're doing a huge volume of quantity, you are able to do it quicker per square foot and your cost does go down. But then there was some nuances on that project of what we had to do, and I had to get a subcontractor to do certain things, a plumber just to do something for the drainage, and we had to cut out the concrete. Well, the cutting of the concrete was not that much. It was like 6 feet, and you had to get a specialty contractor in there to do this, and it was like there's no labor efficiencies on that. In fact, it was quite the opposite. Like the minimum charge was like it's going to cost them $2,000 to get them in there, and what it gave me in Xactimate was something like $200. So we had this extreme, and so if I use this setting for large loss, sure, maybe it does for the framing, for the drywall, for the paint. It is okay. My efficiencies are better. But this one trade or these two trades are completely the opposite. There's not that much to do. And now you're going to reduce my price by another 5% when I need to go up about 200%, right? Like it doesn't make sense that we have a global setting. It should be by trade if they're going to do this. The other problem I have is what about our small jobs? Like Nate said, they don't even give us overhead profit, yet the small jobs are the most difficult to make the money on. They take more overhead. And it's just crazy that we get this same labor efficiency when we should be getting more. We should be getting more time for that job to do it because a drywall job that's just a patch job, if you're going to do it according to the drywall specifications, you've got to go there, do this coat, do this coat, do this coat. You don't use hot mud because you can't warranty that. And the manufacturer specs say, 70 degrees and 40% humidity, you have to wait 14 hours for it to cure. Well, I'm telling you right now, that's going to take 3, 4 days. And it's only 32 square feet.
I think another good analogy too is if you just look at carpet, somebody says, hey, $79 to clean your house. We know that's a teaser because nobody can make $79, right? Your setup time, if you're a carpet cleaner, takes the same amount of time to pull all your hoses out, to mix all your chemicals versus $1,000 carpet clean versus 79. They still got to do the same prep. And
Now
Jeff,
you're speaking my language. I
you
understand
come
this.
from this industry, you know, right? So it's like, look, he's still got a half hour by the time he gets out of his truck, he gets his hoses, he gets all the bumper guards. But 79, he's not going to make money. He's hoping and praying that he can upsell. But unfortunately, insurance or Xactimate is going, well, it's only 50 square feet, so we're only going to pay you $79. And it's like, no, nobody will ever make money on that $79. It's impossible, right? Those are the things that Ben's talking about, is that that's where we sometimes get the squeeze because they're just looking at it as 20 square feet, 50 square feet. And we're going, no, 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 no. It's much more than just the square footage that we're talking about. There's all the other components that takes to run a business, right? We still got overhead. We still got to pay for insurance. We still got to keep the lights on. Those are all
Yeah,
costs
Nate,
that we're going to, yeah.
Nate, that's the cost of doing business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the cost of doing business.
Listen, guys, we're getting short on time, but let me ask just a couple more questions. Will Xactimate listen and adjust to avoid the global change aspect of this, do you think? Or this is what it is?
So I can tell you that the RAA is doing their best. We're having meetings. Um, we are writing our own statements regarding this. We are going to do some education regarding it. I don't know if it's going to go away. I don't know if it's going to change. That is the hope. I also understand that it takes a lot to change a software. There has been some talks already regarding what does that take to make it based on an individual trade rather than a global setting. There has been talks about efficiencies for smaller jobs. So I'm hopeful. I think they see, and this isn't just me. There's quite a few contractors that are volunteering their time to put together some data and talk to Verisk about this. But Verisk isn't the only one. Like we have to look at all the estimating software programs and what they're doing in their pricing and what they're doing in their labor efficiencies, right? I'm not happy with, there's things in core logic I'm not happy with. I don't
Well,
agree with a lot of their labor rates in general, right? So there's just feedback that needs to come from us. But if all we do is just complain, but not actually be proactive about it, and that's what we're trying to do with the RAA is let's be proactive about it. Join us, make some phone calls, emails, make your voice heard, but otherwise just saying it on Facebook and complaining it's on deaf ears or you're just talking to your peers and just getting each other riled up and it's not going anywhere.
yeah, we're not picking on one company. I obviously this news is
No.
about one today, but you're right. You have to look at all of your software programs, everything you're using, and make sure it's right for you and make sure you speak about it. You do what you're doing with RAA. So I'm glad that's happening. Nate, as we wrap up, anything to close with you'd like to share?
No, I think just the biggest thing is just as owners trying to be educated and trying to stay on top of stuff, having things that you do with these podcasts, the industry. I think it makes the industry better
Hmm.
because I do see a lot of divisiveness. You have those who are trying to push it better and then those who just want to complain. And I go, look, insurance and Verisk and Cotality, they've all got a business just like we do. We're all out to make money, right? There's no getting around that. So I'm not blaming one side or the other. I'm just saying that we all have to have representation. So as owners, we need to come together and try to keep ourselves educated and let's push for what we think are fair rights. And normally we hope it splits down the middle. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But we're all in business. We all got in this because we were told you can make good money. So we're here for a reason, and we need to keep doing that and just try to make things better.
Well said, and the conversation will continue. I'll see you both at RIA, and we'll have part two of this discussion, I'm sure, or three or four or five. Who knows? We'll find out. Thank you both.